Hey, what's up, guys? This is MugenLord here, and it's been a week since the release of Final Fantasy 16, and as I promised earlier this week that I will give you my first impressions of the game and just how I feel about the overall experience so far with my time with the game. I have yet to complete the game. I plan on completing it by next week, so there will be a review for the game. Hopefully I can get enough time to actually sit down with it some more. So before we dive into it, make sure you hit that subscribe button, notification bell for more gaming content on this channel. So we're going to dive right into it. Now, when it comes to Final Fantasy 16, for those of you guys who've just been following all my update videos as far as the game is concerned, when the game was first announced all the way up to its release, you already know my personal opinions and how I feel about the overall direction that they're taking the title. You also see the controversy, over Twitter. People are debating whether or not is this truly a Final Fantasy game or is this something completely different. And there's so many people on both sides of the spectrum that's still having this conversation. And Yoshi P and his team have essentially said that this is going to happen, that this is going to be the most controversial title within the series. I know many people say that every Final Fantasy game release is controversial, especially games like Final Fantasy 12, which is one of the most controversials in terms of the gameplay itself. But I don't want to go off on a tangent. I think we can save that for a whole completely different video. So what I said to you guys last week in my last video about Final Fantasy 16, where I said that the game has to accomplish at least two things. Well, one of those things has to be the fact is that will the game have me sit down for hours on top of hours on top of hours playing it, similar to what I do, with Final Fantasy VII Remake when the game came out. I just couldn't put the controller down. Despite me disliking the story direction, overall, I had a great time with the game. So, did this game essentially accomplish that, where the moment I picked up the controller, put it in the disc and installed it on my PS5, did Final Fantasy 16 capture me the same way, many other games that I'm excited for? And the answer is no, it really haven't. Now, there's a few things I do want to go over when it comes to this game's, story and the gameplay itself. Now, when it comes to me playing JRPGs or just games in general, if the story is good and the gameplay is not, really appeal to me or it suffices, I'll play the game from beginning to end. I'll make sure I complete the game. And even vice versa, if the gameplay is super addictive but the story, it will suffice, it will do, then I will just truck along and play the game, from beginning to end. But if both don't hold up too well, then I just pretty much just quit the game in general. Now, how do I feel when it comes to Final Fantasy 16? Now, I would say that the story really has me interested. I really want to know where the story is going, especially after the intro, the prologue that many people, praised in the demo. It does have my interest in that, especially after the situation that happened to Clyde's brother, Joshua. And now we're getting a bit more details on that situation. So that really has me like, okay, this is really, really interesting. So the story is just really keeping me like really like wanting to play the game, like really wanting me to like, okay, I want to see this through to the end. Now, as far as the combat and the gameplay itself is concerned, this game is a full-on action game. Like there's no denying it. There's really little RPG elements in this game that really sink your teeth into, in which I really like in a mainline Final Fantasy game. Now, spin-offs are different because, when it comes to spin-offs, Square Enix always wants to experiment and try different things, and that's what spin-off titles are for. But for a mainline Final Fantasy game, there's almost little to none. If anything, the RPG elements feel like last minute or it's just tacked on so they can say, hey, we filled the RPG requirements, for a Final Fantasy game. But this game is a downright action game. Now, you guys already know I'm not really an action game player. When it comes to gaming, like I said, I'm more of an RPG guy, fighting game guy, and everything. But action games is really not something that, I really play too much or whatever. And they pretty much took Final Fantasy 16 and turned this into an action game rather than a more of an action RPG. It's more action based and heavy than anything else. Now, as far as the combat is concerned, I'm still at the very beginning, or I'm like 18, maybe 20 hours in. I just got finished defeating, Garuda. So I got the Phoenix icon abilities, and I have the Garuda icon abilities. So my arsenal, as far as the things I'm able to do during combat, is still very limited, and that's what I'm also getting from this game when I'm playing the game. As far as the combat is concerned, I just find myself just doing the same thing. Just wait for the enemy attack, dodge, attack, go into the same cycle, repeated combo that I normally do, and that will suffice, and it gets the job done. So that's how I feel right about now. Like, I don't really feel involved. I don't really feel engaged when it comes to the combat. I'm just doing things. I'm just doing it, and it gets the job done, and that's how I feel. Now, I know people will say that, hey, more freedom as far as the combat is concerned will open up as you get more skills and you get more icons, and I will believe, and I do believe that is the fact. My brothers and them are a lot farther than me, and I see what they do as far as combos are concerned, but I can tell that this is a very simplified action game compared to games like Devil May Cry. Yes, it has the Devil May Cry spirit, but it's not Devil May Cry, because Devil May Cry actually has more variety, more options, and things you could be able to do in an action game. And it's like one of the very best, if not the best, in the action genre. And this is more of a simplified version of that formula that's found within the action genre. So as far as the combat, I think that's the thing that's really like making my experience more of a slog to get through, is the fact is that I'm just going with the motions of things, and everything like that. Now, as far as presentation is concerned, presentation is really, really good. I mean, but I don't expect nothing less from Square Enix, because Square Enix, they do really good when it comes to their presentation, to make the game look beautiful and just give you that sense of that cinematic experience. And Final Fantasy 16 definitely has that when it comes to the icon battles. And speaking of icon battles, like, I already knew since I saw the trailer for the icon battles that I wasn't going to like it, and I'm still not really interested in the icon battles. They more so feel like they're on rails, and most of it in time that's put into the icon battles is for the spectacle. It feels like you're playing an interactive movie, especially once you get the icon balls near death. The last portion of the health is more of an interactive cutscene, quick time event where you just press a button, watch the action play through, press another button, and see the action play through and everything. And after a while, after you see it for so long and see the spectacle for me loses all factor. Especially, like I said before, I'm already not really into the whole action thing as it is, and then now we got the cinematics, and we have the quick time events that's constantly playing, that takes the control from you during battle, especially at the last portion of the boss's health. That kind of pulls me out of the experience and everything. But as far as the characters are concerned, excuse me, I know I'm all over the place because this is not even scripted, so I'll be jumping around from my personal experience out of order. But as far as the characters are concerned, Cid is pretty badass, man. I think Cid is this is one of the coolest iterations of Cid found in the mainline Final Fantasy. This guy's got a lot of suave. He's very suave, man, and he's a lot of wisdom to him, especially with Clive under his wing, and he's trying to pretty much keep Clive's head straight, because it's Clive, especially with the experience back when he was younger in the situation with his kingdom, with his father, with Joshua and everything, and his whole mind and everything is so bent on revenge. Cid always constantly always brings him back to reality, and especially after Clive found out some I guess you say devastating information, as far as what I got to in the game. Clive has been in and out of it even more, and Cid is still trying to keep Clive focused. So I'm liking the dynamic between Clive and Cid. I think those two makes a pretty cool dynamic. As far as Jill's concerned, his best friend, there's still not much I know about her just yet, but I can tell the interactions between the two, that there's going to be some intimate moments, I believe, with these two characters, because of the history that they share with one another and the dreadful experience that they have gone through years ago. So now they're going to experience together and take it on head on together and stuff. So I can't wait to see how that relationship mature and develops throughout the game. I'm already seeing hashtags Clive and Jill, so obviously some things are going to happen between those two that people really like. As far as Benedicta is concerned, Benedicta seems like she's an interesting character. Now I understand in this game that they decided to put very like hard emphasis on the politics that's going on within the world itself. So when it comes to the cutscenes are very long, which I don't mind exposition and stuff like that, but the pacing between the time you have the controller in your hand and playing and the time that you put the controller in your lap to watch cutscenes, it kind of feels jarring and everything. But as far as Benedicta is concerned, she seemed like an interesting character, and I wish they would have dwelled more into her character. Now I know they have like a compendium where you can go to the chronicles and go through like the history, the relationships of the characters. You can read extra details and information, but I don't want to go through all that. I would love for the story to go, show me these things, because it's obvious that Benedicta and Sid had some type of I wouldn't say relationship, but there was something going on between those two characters. And there's a lot of pain that Benedicta was going through, when she was much younger, and I wish the story would go deeper into Benedicta and her past, like show it to us rather than the exposition between two characters, to let the player know that, hey, there's some history there, that she's going through some things. So I was kind of disappointed once I defeated her, and that was pretty much it for her character, because the way that the trailer showed her, it seemed like she was going to be play a real big role into the game. But you kind of just dealt with her early in the game, and that was it. And you don't really get a chance to actually sit down and actually get to know her as a character. And I just hope that's not a sign for other characters to come, because this game, like I said, is very single character perspective driven, like as far as story is all about Clive. So I felt as though that when it came to Benedicta, it's like I would like to know more about her. So hopefully the other characters and icons that we come across, hopefully they give us more story and more things that's involved with them while playing the game, instead of going in text and reading more about the character. I would love to see most of that shown and displayed. But as far as the characters are concerned, I'm liking where it's going. As far as the theme, it is very Game of Thrones heavy. It feels more Western like than Japanese. It don't really have that Japanese feel. It feels like it's more so catered into the Western side of things, because even the voice acting, they recorded everything in English, as opposed to recording everything in Japanese and then dubbing it to English. They did it vice versa. So Square Enix is really trying to appeal to the West when it comes to this game. So the game feels more Western than Japanese when it comes to how I like my games. I love a lot of JRPGs. I love Japanese developed games, but this does feel, it has that Witcher feel to it as well. Even the world building, it has Final Fantasy elements in it, like your chocobos and your mogs and stuff. But even though those things are in there, the summons and stuff, it still feels like a Western RPG rather than a JRPG, in my personal opinion. And I don't care how people may feel offended when I'm saying JRPG, since this has been a topic of discussion recently over social media and stuff like that. But overall, the game, as far as the story, I'm loving the story. As far as the gameplay is kind of like, as far as right now, it's kind of limited, and I'm just going through the motions of just pressing buttons and everything like that, and is sufficing. It's getting me through what I need to get through. The game is not really hard. I died a few times, not because of the difficulty. I'm dying is because when it comes to action games, when you get introduced to more mechanics, they introduce more buttons that you have to press and combinations of buttons you press. So just like Devil May Cry and many action games, I always have a problem with when I'm introduced with more mechanics and more buttons to hold and combination buttons to press, I end up mixing up the buttons and end up pressing the wrong button. Like the main gripe that I'm having right now that I'm trying to rewire my brain is when you have this, when you press the circle button, when you have the Phoenix icon, you pretty much dash forward, and I get that mixed up with the actual evade button. So when an enemy is attacking me, I'll be pressing the Phoenix dash movement, and I end up dashing into the attack instead of hitting the evade button, which is the R1 button, because those, like, you would think that you can really, like, you know, evade using that move, but I keep dashing into the enemies, and that's really messing me up. And then once I got the introduction to my second icon ability, which was Garuda, the L2 button allows you to switch, you know, between the different abilities, and holding R2 allows you to use the icon abilities. So now that L2 has been introduced to me, while I'm comboing, I end up pressing L2 and thinking that I'm using the attack button to use my icon attacks. I end up switching out of the icon that I purposely wanted to use to begin with to switch to the other one I didn't want to, and then press R2. I end up mixing up the buttons, and that's how it leads to my death most of the time, because at the wrong moment when I'm in the middle of a combo string, I do the wrong inputs. So I have to re-wrap my brain around those concepts, and this always happens when I play action games. So, but overall, I like you know, the game so far as the story is concerned. But I'm gonna get through the game. My goal when it comes to mainline Final Fantasy games is to finish those games. I try my best to finish every mainline Final Fantasy game. So this may take a while, but I'm gonna try to have it done by next week so I can have a review up to give you my overall opinion and stuff. But you know, I'm telling you right now, this, like, hopefully by the end of the game, this could possibly be my favorite game by the end. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Hopefully it changed my mind, but so far it's okay. So that wraps up this video. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and notification bell, because it definitely helps me out here on YouTube's algorithm. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you game fiends later. Peace out.